Okay. How's everything going with you?
Dean, it's going good. I knew that I had the interview, and then when the phone call came, I looked at the number and I'm like, I'm not answering that. Like, because you know that automatic thing when you don't know the number and you're just like, no, not pushing it. And then I was like, oh shit, that was my interview.
Oops. Okay, Bonnie. Well, my name is Dean. Sorry about I didn't introduce myself.
Hi.
I'm in California.
I'm so glad to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you. Sunny California. What part of California?
Anaheim, Orange County, which is near Disneyland.
Nice.
Another place that's closed.
I know.
During the pandemic, yeah.
I didn't get to go to Disneyland, but one of the last times we were through, we were actually in San Francisco area. We ended up going to Six Flags. So that's another place that you can't really.
Oh, San Francisco Six Flags?
Yeah.
Oh, my son lives very close to that place. Yeah, that's the forget what it's called, but yeah, I know exactly where you went.
Yeah.
Nice. I haven't been to that Six Flags, by the way, but it's a small little place, but a lot of great rides in it. So.
Right. Well, it was one of those flukes. Like we had driven out past it on the way to a gig in Nevada, and when we were coming back, it was like Betty Sue and I just kind of looked at each other and was like, "We have tomorrow off."
That's right. You know Betty Sue. That's right. I forgot. Yeah, Betty Sue. I never got to interview her, but I interviewed some one of the girls in her group that she's doing right now. Nobody's Girl. Yeah. I know Rebecca, so I was Betty Sue, and I Betty Sue's fun to. She's a character.
She is hilarious. She keeps me always in stitches, and she's like one of my favorite people to tour with. And I'm so glad that Grace and Rebecca were willing to share her with me over the past couple of years with tours and stuff.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay, so why don't we get right to it? I'm the one that's all the pressure's on me really to try to look good. You'll always look good in this light.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Go right ahead.
So this is just a podcast, not a visual?
It will be visual, yeah. You okay with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel bad I didn't put my makeup on for you. So that was the only kind of like, it's not really a caveat. I feel kind of bad.
You want me to put a filter on you? No, I'm kidding about that.
It's not necessary.
You look just fine. Maybe
it's more just for the dramaticness of it. Like I wear like two-toned eye makeup usually.
Yeah. Well, I've seen your pictures. I've seen how you get gussied up for your shows.
You see me looking normal right now. That's all I'm saying.
You must have seen worse during the pandemic. People get on, you see them just really gruffy, scruffy. It's kind of weird. The
facial hairs has been really interesting.
Yeah, even on the guys, I think that's really a mess. No, I've had quite a week, so I'm just going to try to take a deep breath and get through it here, and
find your center.
Yeah,
let's do this.
No, you look really good, Bonnie. So don't worry about a thing here. And it's another beautiful day for another great show, and I want to welcome you to it. My name is Dean Olson, and you're watching and listening to StrongWriter on the radio. Video and podcast, and today I'm very happy for the chance to get acquainted with a real serious musician who has played bass and sung with some of the greatest artists in the Americana universe, and lately she has been making a name for herself as a solo artist with her latest album, which is called Last Will and Testament. I want everybody to welcome to the show from Austin, Texas, Bonnie Whitmore.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Steve, for having me.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you finally. What a great album that you put out. Is this your second one, or have you been doing albums for a little bit?
Been doing albums since 2010. I've been releasing records.
Oh, okay.
This one is a fourth.
I thought you only had the two. I only knew about the last one you did.
Well, these two are more linked together. I think I feel like this new record is sort of the sequel to.
Oh, is that the F ... the Sad Girls? Is that?
Are we allowed to curse on this?
No, you can say whatever you like. I'm just trying.
Okay, good.
I don't want to offer it up. I don't want to ruin my clean status on the podcast thing. But no, you feel free.
F with Sad Girls is
that's
PC
acceptable.
version. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not against the I'm no prude when it comes to the language and everything like that. But because
It's one of my favorites, you know. It's
one of your favorite words
of the bad or you know, wrong words to use or whatever. One that gets bad credit for it. That's
immediately
gets
it immediately gets you noticed, though, right, Bonnie? When you name your album that right off the bat, they're gonna go, oh no.
Yeah, it wasn't the radio hit that I was hoping for, though. But you know, what
really?
are you gonna do?
How did that album do before that one in particular? How did that do?
I mean, I think it did really well, and like that song alone really just led to me being able to tour with one of my heroes, with James McMurtry, over the past couple of years. So, you know, no, it didn't get the radio play, but it definitely helped me perpetuate my own career and kind of get me away from being the side person and more of the center stage. So.
Well, you know, that, we're not here to talk about all your past albums, but you do have a nice body of work. I happened to listen to that first before I listened to the album that you put out right now, The Last Will and Testament, which, as a side note, I will say that's a lovely album that you put out just now.
Thank you.
That is great. Yeah, I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, because when I read the press on you and I look at your pictures, you know, may I say that I thought you were going to be a real badass and very cold and tough around the edges, and I was going to have a tough time meeting the standard, you know, because I'm sort of a goody two shoes, and I like to have a good time. And what a treat it was to listen to all these tracks. It sort of it wasn't as hard as I was thinking, you know, not as
scary as the title, like Last Will and Testament, implies.
Yeah, I think scary. Maybe I get scared easily on stuff like that. But I'll tell you what's funny is I listened to it in reverse. I downloaded these songs and I sort of put it on shuffle by mistake, and the first thing that comes up with George's Lullaby, and I said, "Wow, what a beautiful way to start out the song." I didn't realize that I was listening to the last track on there, but and a couple of them. Really, really nice feeling, you know, aside from the songwriting, beautiful arrangements and just a nice cozy feel. I was really impressed with the whole thing.
Thanks. I had a really great time co-producing it with Scott Davis. He and I have been in bands together in years past. We both worked with Hayes Carl. That's how we initially became friends, and working with him and co-producing with him, he's got so many he has so many instruments in his head. He always has an orchestra going on anyway, and he just turns into like his 12-year-old self, and it's so much fun to create, you know. So we really have some synchronicity between the two of us, and we worked. He also part of F with Sad Girls, but that I just sort of gave producing credit to everybody. But this one I really wanted to claim it for myself and for Scott, because I feel like it was kind of our synchronicity that really honed it.
Yeah.
That sound.
Scott, when you say he's got the music in his head, and that's sort of how I do things. Do you do that as well when you're writing something? Do you have a particular way it sounds in your head as you're writing it down, and or humming it to yourself or anything like that?
I think I have a pretty theatrical approach to songs and writing. I think that's sort of instilled in me from growing up in a house where my mom was a classically trained opera singer.
Oh,
so,
really?
You know, I just have I have a lot of things in my brain as far as that goes. Accomplishing it, though, is a different thing entirely, and that's one thing that I think that Scott is better at being a teacher along those lines of he actually can play a lot of the instrumentation that he's hearing.
Yeah.
Mine, I tend to be more honed on wanting to create more of the vocal aspects to it, with like the background vocals or creating more texture pieces, and strings are always my kind of go-to. But he will always sort of pull from kind of a MIDI computer in his brain of all these different noises that he hears come into it. Like I never would have put tubular bells on something except for it seemed like the perfect fit for the title track for Fuck with Sad Girls. So
Oh yeah.
those are his genius moments where I'm like, yeah, let's do that.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So is that something? Is that sort of that serendipity? You can work with somebody and you have a whole new energy when you're working with another person. You may have not have considered or even thought of putting a tubular bell in a song,
Yeah.
and yet he had that in his head somehow, and
Yeah.
And then it's nice when that comes out, and then you can collaborate. I mean, you can concur. I say, I love that. I love what you just did. You know,
Right.
actually,
Well, I'll say a visual of something. It's like I want this to sound like blah blah blah, and he'll be like, oh, and he'll grab the thing and start it, and I was like, how about this? And I'm like, yes. It's like I can communicate. He allows things to be communicated through him as easily as he is the one that's creating the actual like from scratch sort of perspective. But we have a really good time collaborating together, and that's why I was really happy that we had a co-write on this record as well.
okay, so he's there one time in the whole album, or is it?
He co-wrote the song Right/Wrong with me.
Oh, okay.
He also is the guitar player and various other things throughout the record. I play bass on the record as well as cello and a Yeti cup. That was one of the
What? You mean you're banging on the cup like a metal cup?
On the song Imaginary, we did this kind of weird loop thing that Britton helped create because I wanted it to sound like a sort of a creepy wind-up music box sort of sound.
Uh-huh.
And so one of the things that I put in there was like this weird Yeti cup because it made because of the liquid aspect of it, it made kind of like a pow.
Oh, nice.
It was
Okay,
just
so
this weird sounds. We're like, oh, okay, we're gonna create that. It's like just sometimes there's just like crazy stuff that happens. Like on a completely different record, I remember doing getting a box of rocks, and they really spent the time finding which rocks that they wanted to put in the box, and like them putting like little contact mics on it. So it was like, it's just you just see like people turning into their childlike selves in the studio, and that's the kind of atmosphere that I really like to surround myself with when creating and making records.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, usually I wait a little farther into the interview, but naturally we should be talking about the record right now because
you wanted to dive deep. Let's do it.
That's fine. That's fine. But let's go with it. It sounds natural. We should. Last Will and Testament. You were saying something about you used the word kind of theatrical. I think you said that struck me as very cinematic sounding. Very dramatic. I just wondered how you came up with that. Was that all in your head, or did somebody help you achieve? Because that's a nice epic tune that you put out.
Oh, thanks.
As your title track, so that's pretty cool.
I had some aspirations for it. The kind of ELO tribute to Vocal Wise was something that Scott and I both were kind of wanting to bring in there, and so that kind of came together. And just as a side note, it was also one of the ways for me to kind of get over an issue that I have. I tend to be a saxist. When I know there's sax involved, I tend to have a knee-jerk reaction of being like, I don't know if I like this. And so it was a perfect example for me to like go push against my own boundaries and make sure that we featured the sax on this song. And the guy who played it, Charlie Butt, is an incredible player, and he was such a joy to get in there too. But I feel like that sort of the whimsicalness of that instrument is sort of comes through and over the seriousness of the subject matter.
dive, tell me what that subject matter is, because it is kind of serious. I mean, but you dealt with it with some grace, I thought, very nicely.
Yeah, I feel well, the inspiration for the song came after we lost another member of our music community to suicide. And this isn't something that's really new. One of the things that we have here in Austin is the SIMS program, which is it provides mental health for musicians. And but it's still just something that occurs, and it's something that's really hard to wrap your mind around and understand. And personally, I've had my own past experiences with thoughts of that, and it was my way of kind of trying to deal with the grief that inevitably comes from that type of situation.
Well, that's that's a very serious thing you just said right there. If on a personal note for you, I mean, how did you climb out of that pit of despair or whatever? If you had thoughts of that, how did you come back from that and to be the person that I see now? You seem so with it and very expressive, and like things are really looking up and good. So there's always that corner that people turn. I was wondering how you got out of that.
I have always had depression, so that's something that I've always struggled with for as long as I can remember. And the first time that I actually had, and it's something that I actually shared by way of my friend did a blog called I Didn't Want to Tell You, which accompanied with his photography, and it was a lot of different people that participated in it. Steve Holtz was one, Jamie Harris shared a story, lots of different people shared stories, Elizabeth Cook. And what I think is common thread throughout artistry is a little bit of brain chemistry being, maybe a little bubble off plum, so to speak, as my mom would like to say. But
yeah.
But it's nice to for me, even writing F with Sad Girls, that song was about depression for me and about like the misunderstanding of what that is. And trying to build more on the taboos, the things that make us uncomfortable, we don't want to talk about. And for this record specifically, I'm wanting to tackle a lot of those uncomfortable conversations to help start a dialogue and create a space for people to really start discussing these things, because the only way to make it better and to have a healthier lifestyle is to be able to discuss and talk about it. So I'm not afraid to share I don't have those feelings right now, and I don't know if I will again, but I just know that I've had them. And to pretend that they don't exist because it makes me more comfortable or anyone around me more comfortable isn't really good for my soul or for my own mental health.
No, that's true. And I really appreciate that you shared that. I'm glad that you aren't afraid to share it. I think other people that watch this will know, they will relate to that too if they go through that. Do you feel that gives you somewhat of a reference point? Do you understand others who are going through that kind of depression too? So from your own experience, can you relate to other people and maybe share good feelings and advice and things like that if they choose to tell you, right?
Right. I do feel that when you are willing to put yourself out there to open up the conversation, then people are more willing to have that discussion. It's not that you want to go around and say like, this is how suicide has affected my life. How about you? That's not really, usually it's something happens and someone's suffering, either because of a loss or because of what they're feeling. And when they feel that the person that they're wanting to confide in or it just happens to be circumstantial, but like usually when there's a reason where it's prompted, then it makes it a lot easier for people to open up about it. And a lot of my songs specifically ask the listener questions, because I don't want to be preaching about something. I'm wanting learn and to understand it as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
So that helps, start a dialogue. When you ask somebody a question, you're giving them an opportunity to think about it and answer instead of telling them what I think that they should feel or whatever.
No, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned Jamie Harris a couple minutes ago. Is this the same one who wrote Fine with you?
Fine, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that one, just because you mentioned. Yeah.
It was right when we first started hanging out, and we sat down and wrote that song, and it was just kind of like, it happened so quickly, and it was like a high five moment to each other of like, wow, we just created this. This is great. You can tell you wrote a pop song, and you're just kind of like, yeah, it's an automatic high fives. But but we were just kind of discussing our tendencies towards relationships and being non-committal, and I just got out of a relationship when we were sitting down to write, and it's that weird sort of situation where it's like, am I hovering? Am I pulling away? Like really just not being sure of where you are and wanting reassurance within the relationship one way or the other. And being, essentially checking in or being somewhat confrontational with your person to be like, what's going on? And to know that the inevitable outcome is you're going to be fine. Because I always I kind of implore people to lean into those awkward moments or be willing to be vulnerable is for your own benefit as much as anything else, even though it's scary. But yeah, there's definitely a difference between I am fine and I will be fine.
I understand that. Yeah. Sorry for the visual there for those that might have been distracted. I was starting to shrink in my chair there, and I needed to,
oh, no.
get a little close. Pretty soon you're just going to see the top of my head, and that's it. Some more of this stuff. Why don't we talk about the one that's getting noticed? I think you've had that featured, and you had some praise for Right Wrong, the one you wrote with
Scott Davis. Yeah.
Scott, yeah, exactly. Tell me a little bit about it, because apparently that's another one of those things where you say you wanted to start a dialogue. I think that's what Right Wrong is about, right?
Yeah, definitely. We actually sat down and wrote this one about a couple weeks or so before we went into to record the record, and we just kind of wanted to see what we come up with, and we had most of an idea of what the record was going to be, and he's got two little kids, and they're one's like 3 years old now, and the other one's about 7, and we were just kind of wanting to discuss like how do you talk to your kids about what's going on? How do you answer those questions? And in a broader sense, it's just like I think no matter how divided we feel, our wants and needs are still the same. Like everybody wants to be listened to, and everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be heard. That's not just listened to, because heard to me is a different thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But and I was kind of having this mentality where I really wanted to be more like Mr. Rogers, but I'm just not nice enough. And so he and I just sat down and wrote the song, and we kind of phrased it around these 3 questions, which is, who do you want to be, where do you want to go, and what do you want to say? And to me, those were really important to ask those questions of the listener, because I think that really boils down to our what we identify and what we hope for and what we want for ourselves and for the people that we love. And when you find out that most of the time people are going to answer those questions with the same thing, you can see that the division is really more mental than anything else. And it just takes that sort of coming together. I remember playing this song to a pretty conservative crowd, opening up for James McMurtry, and a guy came up to me afterwards, and he shook my hand. He's like, "I'll shake your hand," because of the line in the song, "I'd rather shake your hand,"
Yeah.
And so it's like I knew that we were different, but like at that moment I didn't feel like, I feel like he at least took the time to listen to what I had to say, and that's at least one step in the right direction.
Who do you wanna be? Rising high with the country going by your window. From a distance it seems everything you love can get lost in the shadows. When you get in close you'll see it. Ain't a world of make-believe. There's so much more that's right than wrong. Where do you wanna go? Surrounded by constant updates, endless chatter. It's hard to hate up close, and words can get lost in the face of what really matters. When the echoes get too loud, you can pull yourself out of the crowds. There's so much more that's right than wrong. And I would rather shake your hand. We won't ever understand. Then what's the point of liberty in the land of the free without you and me? What do you want to say? And how will you be remembered when the stories are written? And what would be okay if we could just offer more than what was given? It's not like you can take it with you. The life you live and what you can do. There's so much more right than wrong. And I would rather shake your hand. We won't ever understand. And what's the point of liberty in the land of the free without you and me? Everybody wants to cast a wide net, collect as many friends as you can get.
Well, that's great. I used this word before, but I like that grace that you show, and that's what I always hope for. That's what I hope for on this show. I mean, I don't agree with everybody that comes on here. In fact, some people make it very blatant that they don't agree with me.
Yeah.
But I'm not about arguing. I'm more about finding common ground, and that's hopefully
Right.
hopefully what we're doing here. I wouldn't have been one of the people in the crowd. I noticed there was some kind of line that you'd written somewhere about. I don't know if it was in one of those articles from. Gosh, where did I see that? But you were talking about, playing for some good old boys or something like that, some redneck.
Oh,
crowd.
yeah.
and how they reacted. See, I don't tend to go that direction. I wouldn't be so vocal and so rude. Is that what actually happened? Were they kind of being little bit confrontational, or were they just yelling the old shut up and sing type line or whatever? Is that what it was?
Well, I mean, I grew up and still live in Texas, so we definitely have some opinionated people, and that was actually from years ago. I would go and play these little, podunk bars that are in the middle of nowhere. I might as well have been behind some chicken wire on some of them. Literally, have seen like bar brawls break out, that kind of stuff.
Wow, yeah.
But this was also like right after the fall of the Dixie Chicks, and how I really kind of came to a realization of how detrimental it's been to have their voices missing. Like when I heard Gaslighter on the radio for the first time, like I tears just sprang out of my eyes.
Their new stuff you're talking about, the brand new, under the Chicks, called the Chicks now. Yeah.
Yeah, but like hearing their voices on the radio and had the fact that they've been missing for 20 years or 15 years or how long it's been, that's a long time to not have those voices in there, and what they really represented for someone like me. And for me, I'm a Texas lady, and I'm very opinionated in my own thing. My mom sort of instilled that in me. It's like well-behaved women seldom make history kind of attitude of things.
Yeah.
And so, I got told to shut up and sing, or to not play or cover a Dixie Chicks song, which I always like to point out that Wide Open Spaces was actually written by Susan Gibson. But little information that I always like to share under the circumstances.
You,
Just
lo-
to be
you,
like,
you sort
like
of
if you
lowered-
want to hate something, really know why you hate it. That's all.
Yeah.
I like to clear the air on all that kind of stuff too. But I just really kind of took that sort of mentality to heart, and literally, and it's like, okay, fine. I don't have to talk about it if you don't want me to, but I'm definitely going to sing about it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I like that. It seems like a lifetime ago that happened to them, to Natalie and those girls. With being somebody that would probably have been on that opposite side, I didn't appreciate what happened to them, and I don't think they should have been blacklisted. And must have.
Well,
and,
history has shown that we don't always appreciate very powerful women, and the Dixie Chicks, or the Chicks, Dixie Chicks at the time,
Yeah.
were really powerful, and they were looking for ways to take their power away. If you really want to get blunt about it,
Yeah.
that's my summation of the information that I've learned. But it's really amazing to me to watch what occurred to them, especially with the context of what it was said and where it was said. And after a song like Traveling Soldier, which is a beautiful song that was written by Bruce Robinson, to me it makes sense for her wanting to speak up. But they've been also used as an example for a lot of women in this industry for not wanting to raise their voice or draw attention to themselves and their political alignment, simply because of what happened to them. I know Taylor Swift was quoted saying something along those lines, but Dolly Parton as well. Like that knee-jerk reaction to the word feminist because of things like that have occurred.
What do you think that word means? You sound like you'd be a feminist in that regard.
Oh yeah.
How do you define it? Because I don't know if everybody has the same. Feminist is like in your face, and I hate one side. I'm gonna go do my thing, and hear me roar and all that stuff. I mean, there's got to be a lot more to it than that. I mean, how do you think of yourself?
I think of myself as a feminist in the sense that I am female, and I identify as a female, and that's my life. That's my perspective, no matter what. So I don't think of it as a negative. I have always thought of it as a positive. Like I said, I've had the joy and really what's the word I'm looking for? The luck of having a mother that was my mother, and to have a lot of women that inspired me. One of my first real heroes when I was growing up was Bessie Coleman, who was the first African American woman to fly.
Right.
Pancho Barnes, another amazing woman pilot who basically created a union for stunt pilots and in Hollywood, and was really good at what she did. I just have always had a lot of women to look up to in my life and inspired to be more like, and I've always gravitated to those type of stories. So I don't have a negative connotation when it comes to feminist. I don't think that it has to be what it gets painted, and usually not, I will say, by women as brazen and loudmouth and burning bras and so on and so forth. I think when people have a negative connotation to it, I think it's simply because they haven't actually spent the time to know what it means.
Yeah. That's why I ask, I guess. I'm not a sage. I'm not like full of wisdom, especially when it comes to that. But you know, I married a strong woman. I raised a strong daughter who's just turned 30, and
Oh, yay.
she's always spoken her mind and everything like that. And I taught her that way. And
Good for you.
once we were very much on the same side, you know, social, political, all those things. But I watched her go her own direction, and I'm very glad that she's blossomed. And she's, I just want to make sure that she's doing it with. I said the word grace before, but I want her to have some class whenever she's doing it, because I don't know. I'm sure that women who speak out and are getting brazen, as you said, they can be seen as bitchy, and people.
You know what I think
that
the
gets a
biggest
bad rap.
difference-
I don't know if that's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but I hear a lot of women complain that they don't want to be seen as that. So.
Well, I think there's like if you really have the understanding of patriarchy versus monarchy, what is it?
Matriarchy, sure.
Matriarchy. When you actually start designing everything about one intention in mind, the thing about when you come at it from a female perspective is it also includes males. Like it's never meant to be subject to. And in any situation in which you're talking about inequality or one having power over the other, you know, it's not just about sex, it's about race and everything else that goes into that. But for someone who is feeling oppressed by, you know, therefore you have to be outspoken and willing to discuss and fight for what you think is equal and right. And the ones that are arguing against it are the ones that are in power of it.
True.
So
yeah.
I have a hard time just falling into line of that thinking, just simply because I know that's what people in power would want you to do.
Right. And people will watch and listen to this saying, "This is a music show? What? What are we
Right.
talking
I'm sorry.
about
There
no,
we go.
no,
again.
no, no. But I think you get the point. I mean, I like to talk more about the human aspect of you know, because that's underpinnings of what you are and what your music ends up being. You know, it's a window into who you are when you write these things, and you're not talking it. You're putting it into lyrics and singing it and getting people to think, and I like that.
Yeah, I'm being tricky that way because
you are being tricky.
You want to discuss my music means that we're also going to be discussing that stuff. You know, that kind of. I'm a coyote in a way. You know, I've always had a thing about coyotes. You know, little mischievous creatures.
No, oh man, what a sweet soul you have. I'm glad that you don't yell at me when I bring up subjects like that, because all I'm doing is asking. That's all. It never is. It's never a confrontation. I like to learn. I like to, and I've always been one of these observers. So I watch people around me. Not when it concerns what we were just talking about, but all the unrest that you see around there, and people, you know, as you were talking about with right and wrong, or right/wrong, just trying to explain to people, to younger people, what's going on in the world. I'm at a loss sometimes, because I used to have a very clear sense of, hey, the world's not perfect. People are not perfect. Those who founded this place that we live in weren't perfect. But to see people now who, you know, the adults are acting more juvenile than the kids that we see that we're trying to raise. And that's unsettling to me, because people should be, I understand we're going through a very stressful time with 2020. Everybody's got a whole mixed bag of feelings on what's going on. And I'm glad that you're making it through with with a smile on your face, you know, because there's a lot of bad stuff going down, and got to keep your chin up, I think.
For sure. And I think there's something that I've really been working on for myself. I think I've spent a lot of time absorbing what other people say, and instead of actually seeing it for what it is. It's, you know, a lot of people, a lot of older people, as you were saying, that are kind of, you know, almost giving into tantrum sort of ways of communicating.
Yeah.
You have to look at to what that is. It's not. I know what they're saying is one thing, and it might be misdirected, but you know how it is when you feel scared and alone, and how you react to that, and it's usually not the person that you're talking to is the one that made you feel that way.
Yeah.
So to be able to also like realize that a lot of the vitriol that's coming is coming from a place of fear and a misunderstanding and misguidedness, and not to get wrapped up into the drama of that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like to just be able to
I
stay
do.
a step back and be like, hey, look, I get that we're all stressed right now. I get that this is really rough. You know, like let's take it down a notch. I remember having a really like unfortunate conversation with my uncle at one point in time, and he had just lost his wife and he was suffering, and he was watching Fox News, and I was not trying to engage in it, but he said something and we started having an argument, and
Uh,
I could tell where he was coming from was just he was upset and he was angry about the situation that we were all in, and his particular current situation, that what he was feeling wasn't anger towards me, and that wasn't mine to absorb or to take, you know. And so it's those are really important moments when you can see inside that moment in time and be like, hey, this is, I see what this is, and I know it's not mine. I'm not going to take it from you,
that's very
but
astute of you.
I'll
Yeah.
be here. I'll talk to you, and we'll get through this. But I'm not gonna own that
Yeah.
anymore.
And just as a side note, because you were mentioning all that, all the drama, uh, social media has been a blessing. It's a way we all can communicate nowadays, but it also can be a curse because there's so much poison being thrown in the water, figuratively, with all the the negative and the backbiting and the name calling and everything. And I see the most. If you ever get on Twitter or anything like that, it's almost like walking into one of those porta potties and you have to hold your breath. I can't take it anymore.
Right.
I have to get off. I don't know if I have the stomach for social media anymore as far as that stuff is, because I used to not be afraid to engage, but if all I'm going to see is hate going back and forth, I don't think I want to go that route. I like going where the love is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I think a lot of people treat it like an endless void that they can just shout into without any type of consequences. You know,
Yeah.
that's also part of what that song is. You know,
Yeah.
we created social media so we could be more social, and yet it's caused the opposite effect.
Yeah.
And part of the thing about social media is that you get to say whatever it is that you want to with those characters, and then you can walk away from it. You're not actually saying that to somebody's face, because it's a totally different thing.
It is.
When you see your words affecting somebody. The song "Asked For It" to me is in some ways a therapy in theory, because it's one thing to think something, it's another thing to say it out loud, and it becomes a completely different thing when you are heard being said, when you have to deal with the reaction of what those words are.
Uh-huh.
And that's what social media kind of takes away from us. It gives us an opportunity to release the angst and stress that you have without the consequences of it either. You need to be accountable for the words that you choose. You need to be accountable for the things that the effect that those cause. And it's harder to do under a virtual platform. You as the person even saying it doesn't have that moment of realizing, seeing the effect. And that's really important. It's really important to not only like communicate with a person directly, to look somebody in the eye when you say something,
Yeah.
and to hear them. That's the other thing. It's like it makes so much of a difference when we know that we're actually being heard.
Yeah,
And,
I agree. I agree with that. aside from, I'm not saying that get away from the social media and let's go out and yell at each other
It's a tool.
in person. Yeah, it's a tool, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think we could all stand, as just for an exercise, put the phone down and just talk to each other, be in the moment. Because sometimes, if you have that phone and you're not like if I'm looking, and right now it's almost like, now I'm not paying attention to you, Bonnie. See, I'm not in the moment with you. That's almost an insult,
That's so true.
I think that we've all gotten in, because I've had that too, where I said, geez, you're dismissing me by, you pulled your phone out now, and we don't talk to each other the same way we used to years ago. So maybe that's just the old fogey coming out, saying that, back in my day it was different. We had bad things back then too, but this is just another tool, and sometimes you don't want that tool to be weaponized. Sometimes it's good to keep it more in your control and not have it control you.
Right.
Yeah.
And like just to be able to put it down and take a walk instead of, sending that response in that particular moment. You can take the time to think about what you want to say as well. But additionally, and like what you're saying, with disconnecting with people that you're around because of that, that just, it's also an addiction. Like we're addicted to it, and like anything else that we need to become healthier, better beings. It's, we need to eat less sugar, we need to use our phones less, or we need to delegate what we do and what we don't do. When we come to dinner, do we put our phones away? Do we put them in a basket and say we're not going to touch them? Like we have to make those decisions for ourselves, because, I mean, for what our capitalistic, society will do, it's be like, they want you to do more.
Yeah.
It's like I was a Dr. Pepper habit, 6 of them a day when I was a kid.
Wow.
Those aren't things that, that no one wants to hold blame for, but it was definitely something that was like, you should have this all the time. And
yeah. We all have
our need to find our happy mediums and what actually brings us joy.
I agree. Wow. And thanks. You did give me permission to dive deep on some of these things, so I appreciate all that. This is actually
It's
very
just my favorite kind of stuff, honestly.
Yeah. This is why I do the show like this, because I like definitely I treat it like any other radio show that you would go on, where you're saying, hey, here's my album, I want to talk about this song and this song and this song, and go buy it, and it's going to be out in October, and let's you're definitely going to get that here, because I'm going to make sure I feature right wrong. Do you call it right wrong? I'm messing that up all the time. Is it right wrong?
Right/wrong.
That's okay to say,
right or wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. There is one that I was leaving out, because I noticed that you wrote this a long time ago. None of My Business. Let me back away and let you tell me when did you write that, and what was it about?
So it was actually one of the first co-writes that I did with the House of Songs, which is a really cool nonprofit that they have here in Austin, and it's they have international artists come and co-write with U.S. artists, essentially. So I wrote that one with Astrid Swan, is her name. She's from Finland, and she and I were just, her first trip to the U.S. and like how she was warned about like to be careful and that there's shootings all the time and all this type of stuff, so we were kind of going into that. And when we were getting together, it was right after the Paris bombings and shootings that occurred.
Right.
Which was, very, very similar to what happened to us with 9/11, to be perfectly honest, with just like the ingenuity that went into that whole thing. It wasn't just, someone having a bad day and taking a gun into a nightclub, although that was another inspiration for another song. But the point being is that it was the U.S. It was something that was closer to her, being in Europe, and that was what we were sort of basing our discussion on, and how much time we spend saying like, well, that's not mine, that's over there, that doesn't belong to me, that's none of my business, that kind of attitude. And the reality of it is we're all on this planet together, and saying that to ourselves maybe is comforting, but it doesn't help bring us together or empathize more with each other. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the thought process going into it. There's a lot of, it's not just that particular moment that we were pulling from, but how much we listen to the talking heads, giving us the information rather than, you know, really opening up our eyes and seeing what's going on around us, and who's in charge of those people saying those things. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. Yeah.
It's really taking a deep look into what's happening in our world and be willing to look past the facade of what we think we're seeing.
I sit under a tree, a world in front of me. There's so much that I don't see, the distances between us. But a mockingbird, it sings a thousand different things. Who's pulling all the strings? What gets the most attention? But it's none of mine. It's none of my business. Day in and day out, all we really do is scream, shout, and missing what it's really all about. Say a player's gonna play, should look the other way. Who's left for it to pay if indifferences persist us? We should all be kind and only speak our minds, letting all who choose be blind. Good intentions kill us, but it's none of mine. It's none of my business. Day in and day out, all we really do is scream, shout, missing what it's really all about. Steady melody is find the harmony. Love forward lean. Don't let our fears defend us. But it's none of mine. It's none of mine. Oh, it's none of mine. None of mine, none of mine, none of mine. It's none of mine. It's none of
Yeah. So you process all these awful things happening. Yeah, the shootings, because that was, you know, the thing in France happened, but that was still around the time where there was a lot of shootings were happening in the country, in our country, and to see that happen, and it was a bomb that happened, but it was, oh my gosh, but it was a little,
It was one bomb that happened at a soccer game,
yeah,
but then there was like 3 separate shootings throughout the city of Paris.
oh yes, you remember that.
There's a whole Netflix that delves into that, honestly. So that was kind of one of the things. But I also watched one of the places that would hit was also a music club, and the Eagles of death metal were performing
Right.
when this all happened, and no one knew exactly what was happening because it was so loud in there anyway. And then they didn't leave. They were hunting people down that were trying to cower in the corner or play dead or couldn't get out of the building. Like it was, they did a lot to it wasn't just going in and shooting up a place. It was a systematic, like I can't imagine what those people went through, trying to survive it, and what kind of mental state someone has to be in to want to take a gang of people in there to accomplish that.
Yeah, such
but that's part of our reality, and we can't pretend that this isn't happening.
Right. And yet, you don't try to solve the problem in a song, but I like how you end it. You said instead of melody, let's find the harmony, which is a nice way to put it. Love forward. I'm reading this now. Love forwardly, and don't let our fears defend us.
Yeah.
You can tell I was reading that because I flubbed it.
It's okay.
It sounds better when Bonnie sings it. Believe me, it's really. I like that. This stuff is very heavy material. Not everything is that way on the album, but you certainly have a nice way of dressing it up with a nice musical blanket. It's very, very nice to listen to every track on it, no matter what and sometimes the mood, like you set for Right/Wrong, it's kind of a ballad of it's a little bit slower than.
It's a cheeky sort of like samba,
Yeah, it is.
Like get in there, like kind of bobbing along.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I feel music is still a very healing thing. So even though the subject matter might be heavy, the delivery of it is to try to, soften the blow of what it is to say that you're not alone and come together and let's hug this out, kind of thing.
There's a lot of garbage material to write about, but are you through it all? Do you think you're being? Do you have a little bit of optimism with every song that you're writing in there?
I think I do. I mean, like I said, I have depression, which means that I typically have been a pessimist. Although I have to say, since this whole pandemic has occurred, it's this weird sort of juxtaposition in my mind because I've always been the one that was sort of like, or
yeah.
I'm not sure if I can't really quite go to the positive, but since then, I think because like what people are experiencing with this is depression. Like it's this ungroundlessness that we don't know with the certainty of the outcome, and it's heartbreaking. And heartbreak is something that I deal with. I bleed for my songs. That's always how I've felt about writing, was to get my feelings out. And now I'm just trying to hone it more to where it's not just about my own personal issues. It's something that I'm seeing reflected in a lot of different avenues and wanting to discuss that more. And because of that, and this weird sort of thing since this whole pandemic's been going, I've been a lot more hopeful and positive. Like I kind of even don't even recognize myself sometimes because I'm like, how am I so, like when people ask me how you doing, I genuinely mean like, I'm actually good. And part of it, I think, is because the world seems to empathize with what my normal reality has always been.
Yeah.
So
believe it or not, I agree with everything. I understand that a lot. I'm generally a positive person, but I think for years I sort of had a fallback position that I'm just a miserable guy. I would just I would grumble.
I love my curmudgeons. Yeah. Curmudgeons are my favorite.
I would gripe and grouse and complain about things like that, and yet through it all, I really was an optimistic guy and positive. But from time to time, you get all like when you get up and you try to accomplish something and it didn't work out, and there's here we go again. I'm gonna go be miserable again and upset and and if I see something on the TV like you're talking about, the Fox News, I'm gonna start to growl and. And it's nice when I have somebody like my wife in the house to knock me in the head with a baseball bat and stop it. There are plenty other things that count your blessings basically, and I always have. But I do need to be reminded to count my blessings. And I'm the same way with you. When the pandemic started, you know, I go, well, this is just another chapter. We'll see how this one's going to end. But I'm not going to curl up in a ball and die because of it.
I can't help but see the potential.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know how it's going to end either. The future is really uncertain at this point because this should have been over a few months ago, and yet we're still dealing with you know, masks and fear and inconvenience.
It's hard when you're arguing over science. That becomes a whole other thing where you're just like, I don't. Can I go be in New Zealand now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, where they actually they kind of got it under control in New Zealand, didn't they? I think so.
I know.
Anyway,
It's so strange. Like all these like countries that are being led by women are doing really well.
Here we go. It's the women that did it, right? Because go figure.
Sorry,
that's as far as
myself.
I know, but that's as far as I go. I don't want to, you know. I caught my foot was getting real close to my mouth, and I had to put it back down. But it's
sort of a habit of man to poke the bear too. Can't help it.
Let me remind people here that Bonnie Whitmore is on here because she created an album. Hasn't come out yet. It's still got some time. It's going to be released in October of 2020, and what a wonderful thing. And you're going to get to preview some songs right here. You're going to get a taste of it. And I'm really happy to be talking with you about it. And since we talked about some serious subject matter already, let me find out a little tiny bit about you. Music. How long has it been a part of your consciousness? Did you start out being a little girl and wanting to play? You know, because I understand your mom was an opera singer or classically trained or whatever, like you were telling me. And music was part of your life all along.
Music has been part of my life from the get-go. Both my sister and I really didn't. It was sort of like, this is the joke. I say, in order to be a Whitmore, you have to sing harmonies, play an instrument, and fly a plane. That's it.
That's a hilarious
no big
joke.
deal.
That's right. You can fly, right? You're a pilot?
Yeah, both my sister and I and my mother, we're all licensed pilots. My dad's the only one that did it professionally. He's retired now, but he flew for Delta for a long time, and he actually still teaches. He's got a student that just soloed a couple weeks ago. So, or no, I'm sorry, she didn't solo. She actually got her license, so she's a licensed pilot as well. And
wow, how cool is this? I love this. The Flying Whitmores, like you haven't heard that before,
right?
The
Partridge Family, but smaller.
so everybody in your immediate family can fly. That's wonderful.
Yeah, but music was always like you know, I started playing bass because my dad wanted a bass player in the band. You know, that was, I didn't. It's amazing how like that particular instrument is so like tied to my soul. But yeah, it wasn't a choice. It was just sort of what happened.
Yeah.
And but you know, I did come to my own understanding and love and passion for music. But it was definitely something that was just also a part of my life, and it's ingrained, which is kind of fascinating. My mom actually. Sorry, side note. Going to go into a little tiny tangent here. When I was 2, I was in the hospital for I was in and out of the hospital for like a year with reoccurring pneumonia. And they were going to stick this camera down my throat. And my mom lost it on the doctor. Like basically it's like, do not hurt my baby's vocal cords. She's got to be a singer. It's like, I'm 2 years old and it's already been laid in that I am going to be a singer. So it's like, I kind of feel like it's sort of my destiny, in that regard.
Wow. And she knew what she was doing too, because look at what you're doing. You sing. So
the idea of them hurting my vocal cords, that was just not okay.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you shocked me with that 2 years old. You had that pneumonia. I slapped my face and I smudged my glasses. I couldn't see anything. I was so shocked by that. When did you learn to play your bass? That's pretty cool instrument. I love the bass. I love to play that.
I was about 8 when I picked it up. I had started with like Suzuki and violin, but my sister is basically a virtuoso on the violin and had, 6 years advance on me. So I didn't really want to compete.
So you go over there and you do your violin. I'll do something different.
I used to take the violin and turn it so I would play it like a cello.
Really?
And so my mom finally got to the point and got me on some cello lessons and stuff like that. But bass came around when I was about 8 years old. And in fact, my dad just posted a picture of me when I was about, I don't know, 10 or something, playing and singing the bass guitar. They've been going through boxes and came across some old VHS or whatever, and so of course he had to put that up on Facebook. So thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. Can you play upright with a bow and everything too?
I have.
You were doing the cello thing, so I was just wondering if you did that.
I did cello and orchestra, and I do sometimes play stand-up bass. The group with my sister and Leslie Mendelson, she's a singer-songwriter from New York City. She's amazing. But when Eleanor was living there, we had a little trio called the Pretty Pennies, and my sister was not okay with it not being authentic because we were trying to be like the Andrew Sisters, and so she's like, I had to play the stand-up bass. So we recorded it live in the living room at the house that they were living in, and it was like, I'm bleeding. I'm literally bleeding because I'm just not used to playing the stand-up so much. And like when Eleanor or Leslie would mess up a take, I would start screaming at them like, I'm literally bleeding for these takes right now. But it's a monster, the stand-up.
It's challenging, yeah. And you were young. I mean, how big was that compared? Was it a huge thing for you to play at that age?
Yeah, I mean, I think my dad wanted me to play stand-up when I was a kid, but I was like, that's too big. And the cello is so pretty. Like, it's just a fun, beautiful instrument. I still have my cello, and I pull her out and play her every once in a while. She made an appearance on the record too. So.
Oh, good. So, how did you learn to play the bass? Did you take lessons, or did you just sort of plunk on it until you got good at it? What was the situation there?
My dad kind of taught me how to play along with them. I kind of grew up with the Nashville number system.
Oh, you did? Okay. Explain that to people because I've heard about that too. Nashville number system. What is that all about?
Well, it's like every key that a song is in has essentially 7 chords, not including accidental flats and sharps, and that's like an octave. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
But instead of if it's something's in C and you're telling somebody to go to the 5 chord, you're telling them to go to the G chord. But the thing about number systems is that it doesn't matter what the key, as long as you know what the key the song is in, then you know which number chord you need to play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Can you talk that language to other musicians, or do they have to be also versed in that Nashville number system to know what you're throwing at them? Some
of the best, like one of my favorite things is going like to see country music dance, going two-stepping and stuff like that, and they get somebody up there and they would just start like, somebody would give them a 5, a 4, whatever. You'll see sometimes it'll be behind their backs or whatever, but they'll lead the band through a song that they don't know by just simply giving the numbers.
Yeah.
And it's just easier to hear 1, 2, 3, 4 than it is, like A, G, B, C, all can sound the same if you're not able to hear it clearly. So, I just, for whatever reason, my brain just, if I hear a number, then I know where I'm supposed to go. Whereas if somebody tells me like A, then I'll be like, okay, where is that? Oh, right, it's there. It just takes me a little bit longer to get there.
Yeah, I had to ask that. I didn't mean to go so far off on a tangent. Let me U-turn the boat around here and go back to shore.
Sorry.
I was asking you about.
I'm always in for the adventure.
So your dad gave you guidance. You got to play with him and everything, and that's how you sort of got into it. Yeah.
And then when I was 15, I started actually playing bass with other bands in the Texas music scene. So that was kind of like my further development as being a bass player and being a side person.
That's cool. So middle school, high school, something like that. You were already getting out and doing it. So that's pretty
Actually,
cool.
I dropped out of high school after my freshman year and started pursuing music full time.
Oh, so were you making some dough as you did it? Getting
better money than any of my friends in high school? That's for sure.
nice.
I have to say, like the best, like real professional year of my life. I was 21. I had like a 1-bedroom apartment, and I was making enough money for filing taxes and all that kind of stuff. And it hasn't changed much since.
Yeah, kind of.
Like that I'd reached the pinnacle, and that was it's been pretty similar.
Yeah.
Since then, so.
So I've learned that some people that's just sort of how it works as you kind of have to get into gotta have a place. Shoot, what's the word I'm trying to think of? You gotta know what it is you love and not chase the dollars so much, because you're only going to get so much from gigs.
And don't get into music for the money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I have to. If I give any sound advice, it's definitely.
Yeah, I was trying to put that in a pretty way, like you just did, and I screwed that up. But yeah, don't get into it for the money, because you'll be disappointed. It's you almost have to come to that realization.
Really it's not about the money. Like I mean, I make jokes about it. A song for my last record, I felt like it was about masochism, because that was my realization. I'm like, I'm a masochist. If I choose to do this, even though it costs me pain and all this other stuff, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I was hoping to make a living doing this, be able to pay the bills with it, and I'm spending more than I was supposed to be making. So, spending
it's really
more
nice
on traveling
to take the ego out of it, though.
Yeah.
Like to no longer have the ego as the driving force behind it. I mean, I think once I did that, I actually started having doors open to me that.
Oh, good.
Like I said, I wrote "Fuck with Sad Girls" and James McMurtry heard it, and it led to me being on the road with him, which is a fulfilling dream, under those circumstances.
And
for
he's
me.
he's a big deal too, right? He's a
huge influence for me.
Yeah.
He writes the most amazing songs.
Being in California, we don't, forgive me if I don't know everybody, like, Hayes Carl, and some of these people are big stars, John Moreland, I think you worked with, or.
I played on his last record. I'm so proud of that one. LP5. Oh, it was so much fun to make. It's such a beautiful record. Yeah,
these are all in their world, and Americana's it's become a catch-all word now for all, folk and rock and all kinds of country. It seems like if it doesn't sound like typical country, it's probably Americana, something like that. Yeah, but you're in Austin. I guess it's a big scene. We were talking about somebody before we came on here. Somebody who's kind of a mutual friend. I don't really know her, but Betty Sue, I like her a lot. She's somebody that I've interviewed Rebecca on the show, and we talked about Nobody's Girl, and that's Betty Sue's in that group, as well as her own career. And what's it like having friends that you can sort of bond with in the like another lighthouse over there that you can go to when somebody that in town is nice to have, right?
Well, Austin, I feel like it's a music community. It's not a music business town, and that's a really big defining difference. Like I said, we have a thing like SIM, so we also have HAM, which is before the Affordable Care Act was the only way of affording health insurance for musicians, and that was started here. So we've always been a community of support for each other.
Yeah, and resources too, right? It sounds like. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we definitely have more of a bartering system between some of us than maybe in other places. I lived in Nashville for a little while, and I don't get me wrong, I have nothing really bad to say about it, but it definitely was a different mentality than coming from Austin, and it inevitably led to me wanting to come back because I really need a community to be creative, and I feel like a hustle is so much of a part of our existence, playing music. A lot of the time, we don't always, it's always one of those things. You make a living at it, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's also, depends on what kind of living you want to make. But there's always been that hustle aspect to it, and it can be to the detriment to the music, I think.
Do a lot of your peers have day jobs? Because I've heard that's pretty common. They're making their music at night, but they gotta work to pay the bills that way.
I think everybody has to have a side hustle,
Yeah.
of some sort.
I do. I understand.
Yeah.
So that's
you do what you love, and when it has income, that's great. And the other times you do whatever you can. I've worked as a nanny, and periodically still did for a while, but for a long time, and it was something that actually probably benefited me more than just income, because I love being able to see these little people and how they're developing and how they learn, and it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself is go and hang out with some kids. Just we don't allow our childlike self out enough. As adults, we kind of try to keep it from coming out, and at least in the form of music, it is definitely a playground that you get to have.
Well, it's good that you had two. Yeah, it's good that you had the two worlds that keep you happy. As long as you keep them balanced, you got a good thing going there. So I'm glad for that, because I'd hate for the side hustle, one of them to be like something that you hate, that you're trying to get away from, But it is nice if you have a good like a good job going that you can concentrate. You can have all the more fun creating and playing your music, before crowds or whatever the scene is like in Austin. I've heard it's really intense and it's great. It's very supportive, as you told me. Yeah.
Well, and there's just a whole lot of it. I've never been in a town with as much music, except for maybe New Orleans, where like music is a part of daily life every day. And there's not one night of music that you can't go out and find something amazing at multiple places. We are a late night city. I used to get so angry that I couldn't go somewhere at like 4:00 in the morning in Nashville. 24 hours was just not really a thing unless you were willing to go to Waffle House. But
yeah, that's true.
There's just always been a little bit more of a night culture and that whole live music aspect of, Nashville has some of the best musicians in the whole world. And that was one of the things that I really admired and learned a lot from being there. But I couldn't really say that I always liked the music that was coming out of Nashville. And so even though I think that Austin can sometimes be a little bit more juvenile, but I like the fact that it's learning, it's making mistakes, it's making messes, and creating things together. And whether it ends up being something that's marketable is a whole other issue, but that's the reason why we're not a music business town. Yeah, no,
if the planet Austin is if that's its nature, then I think it should be that way. Why? Otherwise, you'd be like any place else. It would be like Nashville or Memphis or some other recording community. And I agree with the Nashville. I'm a little bit like that too. It's I have more of maybe not the love of the music coming out of there, but the respect for the musicianship and the songwriting.
Musicians are amazing.
Yeah,
and songwriters.
And they set the bar very high. So I think that's why you see the cream of the crop.
Well, it's changed a lot since I lived there too. I mean, I don't know that I would have moved if I knew that one of my best buddies, Aaron Lee Tashin, was going to be moving there, or Brian Wright for that matter. Oddly enough, Lily Hyatt and I used to work at the same coffee shop. That's how we initially met in Nashville.
How nice!
So it's just sort of like how things develop and how they change. Part of the reason why I moved back to Texas is I started playing with and touring full time with Hayes Carl, and I was, that was a Texas artist, at the time, and I was having to come back to Texas regularly, so it seemed like the right thing to do.
Oh, very cool. Lily Hyatt, wave hi to her. Then I like her.
She's the best. Her new record is
and
awesome.
her dad especially. I mean, he's a legend anyway. So, so she's becoming one as well. I mean, you mention her name and people light up and say, "Oh, I'd love to work with her," or something like that. So.
And she's incredible. There's a whole amazing crew of people that are kicking ass and taking names in Nashville, and that, there's a part of me that wishes that I was there, but I'm also grateful that I'm where I am and doing what I'm doing.
Just a side note, because you have any knowledge of do you know who in Austin, do you know who Carla Olson is, or the Tex Tones, any of these groups?
I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay. She's more advanced. She's more like 70s, 80s type of stuff.
Huh.
Worked with Kathy Valentine out there from the Go-Go's and a lot of these folks. I've had her on the phone. She shares my last name, but we're not really related. So, but she tells me stories of Austin, and I always wanted to come and visit there.
Sounds like somebody I should know.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd have to look her up. Carla Olson. Very. I'm looking forward to talking to her again. She's been on the show a few times, and I always think, huh? Yeah,
hook me up.
She lives out here, but she spent most of the time in Austin. That's where she grew up, but she's out here, so I guess that's how she made her name for herself out here. So, but she always has that root in Austin, and tells me good stories about it. And it's wild too out there. I think it's always been. In the 80s, that's when I learned about Austin and the whole community. It's just the art, the culture, the music, everything's it's
pretty open.
It's pretty open. There's a nice word to put. Yeah, it's a nice way to put it.
Well, like the keeping it weird stuff, like that was part of the fun part. Like, part of the joy of being in Austin was not just, seeing the music and all the stuff that was going on, but like having the characters like Leslie, that would run around. Everybody had a Leslie story that they wanted to share, and when he was running for mayor, that was the most entertaining thing ever.
And the keep it weird is sort of the unofficial slogan of the town too, isn't it? Keeping it weird.
Yeah, it's just it's always been kind of like, it's okay to be a little bit weird or different, or normality was never something that people revered so much in this town, and I think that's the reason why I always loved it. And going to a place like Nashville, that's a lot more conservative. It definitely it was a learning curve for me when I got there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, when I learn about these things, just the LA scene and the New York scene. When I talk, I've talked to producers and everything from. There's such a diversity between
for sure.
Yeah, such differences in the two. And it's very polarizing. Those say, I'm never going out to LA again. I hate that, but I'd rather be in New York, and vice versa. And then you get into some places in between, like Nashville or even Atlanta, where they're doing a lot of. There's every community. It's nice that there's a diversity in all these different towns, and they should keep their own identities the way they are. I don't want to see them all get meld into one thing. Otherwise, you don't get the quality. Of the music. Anyway,
things got to stay a little dirty, You
they have to,
in there, and that's the best part. So
keep it weird, keep it dirty.
I have a weird theory too, that like every city is sort of represented by the drug choice.
Oh, good. Now, not that I know anything about it, but so I've heard.
Not that I do either. I feel like Austin's always been like a pot town, So.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the smell goes. It's just the type of smell that the pot smells different nowadays. But
non-champa just sort of rules over the city like a little cloud.
Yeah, it ain't a concert until you break out the the spliff or whatever it is.
Actually, but it was a lot of like rednecks and hippies. Like that's what Willie Nelson and the Outlaws of Country kind of originated. It's its own culture for sure in Texas, and I love and hate a lot of it, but mostly
I
love
do
it,
too. I
you
don't
know?
know if I'd fit in because I'm not from one of those podunk towns that you're talking about. I didn't grow up with that kind of culture. I grew up out here. more of the
Yeah,
Brian
city.
Wilson or some of those things. What are some of the LA bands out here? But
Well, anything from that era, especially. I
mhm.
mean, it's incredible. Like the the Laurel Canyon
Oh, absolutely.
documentary, all that kind of stuff. Like
Oh,
Carole
did you see
King is
that
one of
thing?
my
That
biggest like
yeah. That
influences if we're talking about bass players. I mean, she was the shit, man.
which one are
Like
we talking about? Who?
Carole King.
Oh, Carol Kay. Yeah.
Thank
Or
you. Sorry.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting
No, you said Carol King, which is also Laurel Canyon stuff. But yeah, but
I know, but
absolutely.
I'm a fan of the melon prop, so what can I say? I get
Oh,
things.
she's Carol Kay is still
Carol
around.
K.
Carol
Yeah.
Kay is still around, and I want to talk to her
Yeah.
because I love.
Oh, I would too. God, she's
Forget that
amazing.
she was a trailblazer. She's just an awesome musician,
But I
and
love what she
other
said.
yeah,
She had this great quote of just saying like music isn't male or female.
yeah,
It has no sex.
yeah.
And that to me just like because it is something that's like what's it like to be a woman and musician or you're great for a girl or something of that sort. It's just kind of like
Something I guess
you're
that hits a nerve with
missing the point a little bit.
a
That's all.
A lot of girls don't respond to that term. You're doing great for a girl, but she is what she is, and I like that other male bass players. I've seen videos where they old footage of them in a room, and they're just in awe of. She's almost like the sage teacher. She's
Well,
playing
right.
so well, and these other bassists are watching her going like, I gotta play that riff just like you did. How do you do that? They're
Well, she
accomplished
was
themselves, and they're
yeah.
looking to her for guidance and inspiration, and I think she is.
She was always I feel like just because of her musicianship, it's like that's what I mean. It's like no one ever saw her as just like a girl who was doing it. They were
Yeah,
just like, oh, this is a really awesome musician. We can really create some good stuff together. It's like
yeah,
that she didn't allow a barrier to be there, and that barriers are a terrible thing to start, when you're trying to be creative.
yeah.
So I just it's taking it one step further than
Were
I
you
think a lot of people do. I don't know.
were you inspired by other girls that played bass, or did that matter to you? Did you just look for other bass players that were more that inspired you to play more like them? Did it matter what sex they were?
It didn't matter.
Hmm.
One of my favorite bass players ever, that's actually who I wrote George's Lullaby for, was George Reeve. Um,
Yeah,
I had some issues that had more to do with going into to music stores. Um, like it wasn't always it was more of a male toxic environment most of the time. Like
yeah.
I'd walk into a music store and they were wanting to know if I was buying something for my boyfriend, kind of
I know.
attitude, or
I know.
if
I
I
know.
knew
It's
how
like going to
to,
those guitar
yeah.
shops. Yeah, it's a lot of males
It's
strutting their feathers, their tail feathers, and everything.
and it's
And
not just because I'm a girl, but it was just like that mentality of like it wasn't like come in and like learn about what it is to be a musician. Like here's all these wonderful toys, we want to help you. A lot of the times it was like, who do you think you are? A kind of
yeah,
attitude. And George, I was complaining to him about not wanting to go to a music shop because of how I was treated, and he invited me to just come to his place. He had 30 plus basses. He let me go through all of them, play them, see which one felt good. He kind of set me up with an amp and dialed me in. Um, really listened to what I wanted, but he really helped me hone what it is what I liked. Like I knew what I liked, but I didn't know specifically. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't speak gear. And he was just kind enough to just um, give me a playground to learn. And his he played bass on my first 2 records because I loved his bass playing so much. Although
Yeah.
there's one song on both records that I can't play the bass line and sing at the same time. So kind of, had to give him a little razz for that one. But
Okay. And
but
and now he's gone, right? Yeah, we're talking about
yeah,
somebody.
we lost him. We lost him to cancer, and
Is that why you
and
wrote
then-
the George's Lullaby after that happened, or did you write it before?
I wrote it the week after it happened. We actually got to go and see him in the hospital, and he wasn't conscious. So the doctor said to us, don't think that the hearing's the last thing to go. So don't be afraid to tell him, and talk to him because he can hear you. And it was a really beautiful moment. And then we got the news that evening that he had passed, and that both him and Jimmy LaFave died on the same day, and so that was a huge blow to the Austin music community. And I somewhat regret that I'd never sat down with my bass to write before, and up until that moment, and I sat down and I wrote George's Lullaby on the bass. And it was kind of like a parting gift that George gave me, because now I've been writing a lot on the bass, and it's kind of like a whole new chapter that I had at my fingertips and didn't take advantage of. And so now I've been really enjoying that.
You know how a heartbeat both rises and falls. Follow the breath as it ebbs and flows. Remember the time when 3 became 4. The beat that brought me to you. When you lose your heart and that first tug of war, the bass feels the heartbeat on 2 and then 4. The pleas of anguish once again and once more, blowing the rhythm the heart it beats for. You know how a heartbeat both rises and falls. Follow the breath as it ebbs and flows, counting in time, both in rhythm and rhyme, the beat that brought me to you.
Very apropos to do it that way, but I didn't realize that you hadn't composed things on a bass normally, right? You did how do you normally write a song musically?
Usually the acoustic guitar. The thing about a bass is that it's such a complementary instrument. Like, it's not a solo instrument. Yeah. And I think of it as like the heartbeat behind any band.
Yeah.
So it's hard to just do by itself and have it feel full and not feel like you're alone, exposed. And there's definitely ways of getting around that, and plenty of people that have done that justice, mind you. But
yeah.
I just hadn't kind of maybe had the guts to do it yet.
Yeah.
But now it's just like it makes it so much easier for me to co-write with people, because I can come up with different grooves than I could play an acoustic guitar. I'm so sort of into to like playing more country chords on an acoustic that the bass frees me up to do a lot of other things that
Is it a lot of times
before.
when you co-write, do they also have an acoustic guitar or something with you, and you could conceivably you could play the bass lines on your guitar with them, and then come up with some kind of groove together,
Well, it's kind of like, I wish I played piano better, because that's another way of you can voice certain chords in a different way that you like. I don't, not that you can't, but I'm not a good enough guitar player, I feel like, to pull it off. And so, I think in some ways with songwriting, you do what you know, or you do what you feel comfortable doing, but with at least now coming at it with the bass guitar in mind, it allows me to think of things in different genres or go with a different rhythm because I can create it easier by doing it that way.
Yeah, I was enjoying that. I lost my train of thought because I was thinking so much about the bass. But I'll just share with you everything. I always wanted to play all the instruments too, but it seems like that either was my willingness to commit and stick with it. I stop at a certain point, and now I'm not proficient on the bass, but I love. I learned. I think what I did is I just wanted to learn enough so that I could create a song all by myself. So I had enough knowledge to and enough talent to pull that off, but I couldn't be a side person like you, and play in a band and be and hold my own because you actually have to know how to improvise and everything. Look for the changes and keep up with it and it's admirable what you do. Being a bass player is very underrated. People, they get overlooked a lot. Yeah, they think.
Well, and you have to know the song.
Huh? What's
you
that?
always have to know the song. Like when you mess up on the bass, everybody knows it, and you don't get a break. Whereas like the guitar player can kind of just like play its part and then disappear if it wants to.
No, I think I understand that because you hit the. You're supposed to go back to E, and all of a sudden you go to B, oh no, you could.
Nothing else is in your frequency, so like everybody hears it. So
yeah, everybody was in tune, and all of a sudden you hear boom. Yeah, and it's hard to, even if you come back from it and act like you didn't make a mistake, everybody knows it was. Oops, that was a wrong one. That was a clunker.
What? and you get the looks from the other members of the band. That's the other problem. Yeah. It's like it's one thing when you hear something's a little bit off. It's another thing when like the whole band goes. Just like looks directly at you and you're like, great, way to like play this down, guys.
What's your basic? I've heard how you play on your records though, but what's your favorite way to? Are you fingering the bass all the time? Do you ever use a pick or do you slap? Anything like that? Do you do different, or you just keep you kind of stick to one style that you're comfortable with? Yeah.
Well, no, I go back and forth between using a pick and using my fingers, but I also I've had a new bass toy that I've been playing with over the past couple of years, and it featured on this record too. I got an 8-string bass. You
did? Oh, that's cool.
It's a Hagstrom 8-string, and that's been really fun. But it definitely turns me into like almost metal mode half the time. So like chonk, chonk, chonk. Like it's so ornery and.
That does that sounds like now you can get into some metal chords with all the different options we have now with the
bass chording is really like it's a new thing and I'm totally in love with it. So yeah, I've been doing that a bit more and especially using that to like write with. That's been really fun.
How about something a little more conventionally? Do you ever do the 5 strings?
I had a 5-string when I was younger, and I never used it that way. Like I totally get it, but that I think where I feel like it's the sweet spot with the bass is to have something really like fat and fuzzy versus thumpy and that kind of like almost like that kind of I can't say the words that I mean, but it's like it's a certain type and like for certain music it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
But
can't say the words you mean. Welcome to my world. You can't say the words that you mean. That's me trying to explain that. But I like the
there's a connotation that is sort of translates with the 5-string that didn't actually I feel like represent what I do. So it's sort of misleading. So I haven't really gone back to the 5-string because of that. If I need that D, then I drop the E string and hit it that way. But otherwise I just stick with the 4.
Yeah, I always think that I would like that extra string. It comes in handy for the lowest. I don't know what you tune that to, B or something like that. But it's
it's tuned to a B. I would only use it for like that low D. And so I just wasn't utilizing it like I probably should. And as much as I admire other people who can just like solo out on a bass, that's just I don't come at it that way.
Yeah.
And I think I like the fat sound of the bass more, so it can get really muddy, if you're not more precise with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've nothing against it, but I've like as far as like either a fretless or a 5-string, that's just never been my particular.
Yeah, but if you're playing the style that you play, you're not getting into anything funky, so you're not plucking and slapping the strings. So you're doing it.
I mean, there was a time when I tried to like learn a little Victor Wooten-esque, slap bass or whatever, but I saw Bellfleck and the Flecktones, and I remember going up to Victor afterwards, and I was like, "Can I see your hand?" And he put his hand up, and I put my hand up, and I went like this, and his hands were like slightly bigger than mine. I'm like, "How the hell do you play like that?" Like, I think he did like a solo Flight of the Bumblebee by himself on the bass, and I was just like, my mind was completely blown, but like never at any point was I looking at him going like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that." I was just more like, "Wow, you're cool for doing that," and that's it. I'm gonna put that on the shelf, and I'm gonna walk away from it. That's
Oh, I love this. I love that I'm talking bass with somebody who actually knows how to play, and I'm just a lowly, self-taught person.
You're really bringing out my geek right now.
But you know what, Bonnie, I really appreciate that you're spending all this time. I hope you didn't mind the lengthy conversation. I think it's a lot of fun, and you went places I wasn't expecting, and I was really glad that you did, because this is gold to me. I think that somewhere I can grab something and put a spotlight on it, and people will say, "Wow, she thinks like me," or I'd like to think like her. This is you really are an inspiration. I'm really
thank you.
I'm super glad that I got a chance to talk to you today. So, and
me too. I'm sorry that I was late, and I think
nobody knows you were late. Nobody said you were late. No, no, I'm just kidding.
Can we edit that out?
No, that's fine. No. Bonnie was late, and I hung in there. I didn't give up on you, Bonnie, because things happen.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Bonnie's been busy, and so have I. So I don't want to ever be the one that isn't on time, because then I lose relationships that way. I don't want people to think that well, shoot, I was there and you weren't, that kind of thing. But Bonnie, you're great, and so is your music. I'm glad. I hope I talked enough about the songs that you wrote on this album, and some of the people that worked with you. It's really fun to take a listen to. It's called Last Will and Testament, and it's going to be released on, I'm reading this, October 2 of 2020. There's a lot of twos in there. 2 October 2, 2020. Seems so far away. Wouldn't that be nice if you could, if this thing finally, this pandemic came to some kind of resolution, you can get back out there and start playing and showing that, bragging to people. Yeah, it'll happen soon enough. Yeah,
eventually.
We were talking about being optimistic. I know it's going to happen, but for many people, it gets they're impatient, and they've had to deal with doing stuff online. And I don't know if you've done that. You must have a following, right? That you somehow you're communicating with people during this time. I've
actually been doing so. I've had a residency in Austin for the past couple years at the Continental Club, the gallery upstairs, and
really?
I've just taken that and put it onto a virtual platform. So I've got it's me and my friends, and every Thursday, in fact, tomorrow I'll have the amazing Terry Hendricks as my guest, which I'm very excited about. She's really like a instilled hero in me at a very early age. So I'm really happy to get that time. But it's every week is a different guest, and it's through Zoom. So it's like this. At least I get to see the people, and that makes a big difference to me as far as like interactiveness. The live streams is great for what it is, and it's what we got. So I don't mean to complain about that, but I do enjoy being able to actually see the audience as well as play to them. So
I'm glad.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm getting to see you. This is good to see you like this way. you were conscious about how you looked on camera. I think you looked just fine. You look great.
Oh no, I usually have it's part of the persona, you know.
You like to glam up a little bit?
To wear the crazy makeup. So my apologies for not putting on the full face. Although here,
No.
I don't want to forget my sidekick, my little friend.
Oh, cool. I like this. It has a name, maybe?
Tyrone
the
T-Rex.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's
always smiling, so it's like he's actually my purse. He's my emotional support purse.
So that's what that is. That's why I see all the hardware on there, the jewelry type or the hooks and things. So it's a bag, I guess. You carry things around in it.
He gets more attention than I do. Like I've taken out on tour, and people are like, "Is that Tyrone?" And yeah, he has his own rock stardom. So.
Well, that's cool that you. I was always wondering. We were talking about Mr. Rogers. I used to sort of fashion myself when I tried to do this stuff before Zoom was around. I did video things, and I always liked doing a show and tell. Show me what your instruments. What's that thing back there in the room? And
right.
They tell me a little bit of story about it. I love doing that kind of stuff. So
Well, my thing is more Miss Frizzle. It's more
Miss Frizzle?
towards Miss Frizzle, yeah. So
the cartoon, the Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus. That's why I like to do my crazy makeup and crazy outfits, and my sidekick's a little tiny dinosaur. So.
I like that. I'm glad that we finally I didn't even ask for it, and I got
the origin story.
Origin story of Tyrone the T-Rex.
Yeah.
But oh gosh, where was I? Here goes my.
You were wrapping up, and I went on another rabbit hole.
Oh, wrapping up. What's that? No, I'm glad that you're not in a hurry to get out of here, but we will wrap it up so that way I respect your time. And you can get on with the rest of your day and have and it's been a lot of fun. Here is the I always ask a question at the end for everybody, Bonnie, for other songwriters and artists who are hopefully relating to your story, all the stuff that you shared from your heart. Maybe you could share a little bit of your personal wisdom for people when you're a creative type. There are there are hills and valleys. There can be times when you don't feel your power. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You could be less than confident because times there are setbacks and things will happen, and you might go I don't want to give up, but what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do one day to the next. Is there something you could do? Something you could share as an arm on their shoulder, a pat on their back, so to speak, to let them know that better times can be around the corner, and maybe with the next new day something could happen that's going to be great. Do you have something that you could put in your own words that would be like that?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that they're not alone, that no matter who the person is that you inspire to be more like, they've gone through similar days like that. And I've done a lot of meditation lately, and sometimes just taking a deep breath, and even if you're not getting the result that you want to in that moment, just keep picking away at it, keep writing down those thoughts, or keep picking up that guitar or instrument of your choice. It doesn't do anything but help heal you. So take the ego out of it and just lead with your heart, and it'll get you where you need to go.
Thank you, Bonnie. I love it.
And don't be afraid to be vulnerable either. That's another one.
Yeah, you're human after all. That's what we do. We get vulnerable. So, but
make those messes. That's what Miss Frizzle always said.
Oh,
go out there and get your adventure. Make messes.
Miss Frizzle's wisdom as well, so I like that. Thank you. Got to put that in there. That's part of your personality, I think. And what a
She's
fun time.
Definitely an influencer.
What a fun time. I like the conversation. And, we sort of, we drove the highway and we went off to some dirt roads and took a look around and came back and made it back. Yeah. Made it back before dark.
You,
that's the easy.
For having me.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that. Bonnie Whitmore, Last Will and Testament. That's the album that she's going to be promoting. It's going to come out. It's going to drop on October 2 of 2020. She's had many accomplishments, but this is something you ought to take a listen to, because it's really, look at me. I'm shrinking again here. It's like I I got to get me a new chair or do some standing instead.
Get some new hydraulics or something.
Yeah, I gotta put
get a little booster seat or something.
Take this into the mechanics shop and get it worked on. But Bonnie, you're a treasure. What a wonderful conversation, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope this is not the last time I get to talk to you. Maybe after things get back to a different normal. Love to have you on again if you're willing.
Love it. Anytime.
Okay, I'm going to let you go, and everybody go check her out, Bonnie Whitmore. It's been nice talking to you, and you have a great day today. Okay.
Bye.
God bless. Take care now. Bye bye.